Good morning, one and all, and welcome to the Preport. I'm John Adirola, and in today's Preport, we are going to be talking about what seems to be kind of like a backfiring plan that Marjorie Greene and other wackadoodles in the GOP caucus in the House instituted, trying to get rid of Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, their speaker, that they got after they yeeted the last one into the sun, and they don't like this one either. And so now she wants to get rid of him, and it could end up with the Democrats taking over. So I'll give you my thoughts about how likely I think that is. But more importantly, Marjorie Greene, who helped to start this thing, is now looking ahead to what could happen and really doesn't want the blame for what could be coming. So we'll be getting into that in just a sec. You can get us to that faster by hitting the like button. It looks like a little bit more than half of you have. It's a great habit to get into. It's very easy to do, doesn't require much expenditure of energy, and it is in fact free, at least as of right now. Anyway, I want to jump into other news before we talk about that. I got a lot of little stories I want to talk about, including this, which makes my blood boil. So, report from CNBC. How's it going, Tim? Novo Nordisk's Ozempic costs about $1,000, sometimes more per month. Apparently, to actually make it costs less than $5 a month. So, $5 to manufacture it, $1,000 or more for you to actually have it, or someone else to have it. Meaning that this medication that, look, whenever I comment on this, by the way, I just want to be very clear. I will assume that what generally people think about this medication is true, that it largely can work for some people. I don't know. I don't take Ozempic. I'm not a medical researcher. Don't take any medical advice from me. And for God only knows the sort of long-term side effects it might have for people who are taking it for what it initially was not intended to be used for. But whatever, people are using it and they seem to be getting some sort of benefit out of it. But it is not, accessible to everyone. If it's going to cost more than $1,000 a month, lots of people will not be able to afford that. And apparently it didn't need to. And honestly, while obviously this is a different sort of medication than, say, like insulin, this seems like even worse price gouging. Now, I understand there's a lot of demand. They hadn't been making enough. That's been going on for a little bit. One would think that they could perhaps, fix that. And the idea is, so hold on. Kathy says that Kathy takes Ozempic for diabetes. That's the thing. Now it's being taken for multiple different things. But the price is being raised theoretically for everyone. That's sort of the problem. But this is just a reminder of how absolutely horrendous the price gouging can be for this sort of medication. And we will see if it's just supply chain, if it's just demand, outweighing supply or whatever, that is a thing that can be fixed. If it isn't fixed, then what you could have is the sort of thing that we had coming out of the pandemic, which is they use perhaps in some ways honest claims of supply chain issues to bake in a new price that will remain the price even when the problems that supposedly led to the higher price are no longer there. And so we'll see, but this is absolutely absurd. I'm sure you had to spend some money to develop it, but I think that you're probably doing okay. Anyway, let's turn now to this. I want your opinions, okay? I want your opinions on two things. Well, I want your opinions on everything, but I specifically want you to type about two things. So the first is this. I saw this article, and I hadn't really thought about it too much, but legal scholars, some of them, are pushing for Justice Sonia Sotomayor to retire, with the idea being that Joe Biden could well win re-election, but might well not, and the polls are super close right now. So if he is not going to be president next year, maybe Sonia Sotomayor, who is the oldest liberal justice on the Supreme Court, should retire. I believe she's 69 years old. It's entirely possible that she could last, another Trump term or even longer. But, I think a lot of people were burned by what happened with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and they don't want to see that happen again. And with the conservatives already having a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court, the idea that that could potentially go to 7-2, that's an issue. And by the way, remember, what I've described right there is like it's the biggest version of a problem for Sotomayor, which is Biden actually loses. But bear in mind, that's not the only issue that could happen. He could win, but the Democrats lose the Senate, and then the Republicans in the Senate decide, you're just never going to get a Supreme Court justice. It doesn't matter. You could do day one, we're not going to give you a Supreme Court justice. And that is arguably more likely than Trump winning. So I don't know. Look, it is always tough to ask someone to vacate a position that, for all I know, maybe she thinks she could hold for another 10 or 15 or 20 years. I don't know. But a lot of people have a lot of fears about the current state of the Supreme Court, let alone what the Supreme Court could look like if another seat goes to the Republicans. So, just something to think about. What do you think? Would you encourage her to resign her position, I guess, in the Supreme Court? Okay, if you're just joining us now, we're going to talk briefly about the continued fallout over Immaculate. I just love when politics lines up in such a ridiculous fashion with pop culture. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Let's talk about this. So, I told you a couple days ago, I think, about how Sydney Sweeney had drawn these conspiracy theories that following her appearance on SNL, she was now being forced by the deep state into a movie to insult conservative Christians. And that's why she's in this movie Immaculate, where she's a nun, but it's bad for some reason. It's evil. I mean, it's a horror movie, but let's pretend that it's supposed to be a serious commentary on religion or something. And she's being forced, even though she bought the script years ago and seems to really, really want to be in this movie. But anyway, now with all of those conservatives freaking, yeah, no, Kazif, she did. She co-wrote and produced the film. I don't think maybe she revised the script. The script had initially been written, but she did produce it. So now they're using all of that to advertise for the movie. So they've got these memes going around of it being described as diabolical and sacrilegious, pure evil, grossly offensive, things that, you know, typically horror movies kind of like want to be described in that way. But anyway, they've got a t-shirt you can buy that has one of the biggest quotes. It's going all over the place. And now there's even this. So this is Sydney Sweeney reading from the Bible. Some holy music. And this is just
Second Book of Chronicles,
taunting.
chapter 21, verses 14 to 15. Behold, with a great plague will the Lord smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy goods. And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of the sickness day
Gross.
by day.
Okay, so look, I can't say that I know exactly what they're going for there, but I think the idea is that they want to get the critics of the movie into a state that I think would best be described as furious horniness. So that right there, I guess, is, for many of them, their absolute dream. All they want is a woman like that reading the Bible, wearing a dress. It's like, it looks at face value, or first glance, like the trad wife ideal or whatever. But of course, it's taunting them. And now she's lined up with this movie, and it doesn't seem like she's been manipulated since she's helping to advertise it, but she does have boobs at the same time, so it puts them in a really difficult position. They're stuck between a rock and their hard crotch, I guess. But anyway, I like to see people having a little bit of fun in social media, particularly at the expense of people who take things way too seriously that are not intended to be taken seriously in that fashion. Anyway, okay. Tatarama says, tell Jank to buy John the gear he needs so that he doesn't have to shoot his monitor with a phone. No, like, we could theoretically do, like, a higher production value thing for the pre-port, but, like, I don't know. I like to think that it's kind of supposed to be about the fact that it's sort of slapdash. But anyway, that's just me. Okay, let's turn to an update from something we talked about yesterday on the show, which is on the pre-port. So Donald Trump talking about how excited he is that RFK Jr. is running because, and never forget, he's a lib commie environmentalist. Please, MAGA world, understand that he's a leftist. He's not who you think he is. He's a leftist. But they're super excited that he's running. So now, in the same day, I saw two headlines on sort of like the sidebar of the Hill about this. So you have Tim Scott saying that no doubt RFK Jr. the ballot would bleed votes from the Democrats, and Karl Rove saying Democrats should worry about RFK Jr. Okay, so let's say that they're being honest there, that they believe that they should be worried about RFK Jr. and that he'll bleed votes from the Democrats. Okay, if that is so, why are they all blitzing the media to talk about it? Like, it doesn't have the feel. And I try to play devil's advocate. I try to, you know me, I don't like people asking rhetorical questions that should be better treated as actual questions. So when I say, why would they be doing this? I try to actually answer that. It could be like a victory lap or something. Ha 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 ha. But it doesn't have that feel, does it? It doesn't really feel like that's what they're doing. It doesn't feel like they're being honest. It also, because I came up with another potential explanation, it doesn't feel like what they could be doing is he's a rabid lefty or whatever. He's going to hurt the Democrats, so Republicans help support him. Right-wing media put him on because it'll hurt the Democrats. Donate to him so he could get on more ballots. But it doesn't really feel like that either, does it? You know? It feels like this is damage control. This is them trying to make sure that every MAGA person knows not to vote for this guy, which you would only try to do if you feared that MAGA people might vote for that guy. That's what it feels like to me. Maybe I didn't express myself well about rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions have a point. I'm not against the concept of a rhetorical question. What I'm against is people asking a rhetorical question and seeming not to understand that they could try to answer it. You know? Like, you just say, well, why are they doing this? And then you move on with their life. Well, why not stop and try to provide an answer to that question? Questions generally can be answered. And even if you can't come to a satisfactory answer, the process of trying to generate one, I think, can be useful. So anyway, a lot of people just throw out questions rather than try to answer them. That's what I'm against. Anyway, by the way, there's this report in the Daily Mail about Alina Haba, and it's that she's had this like crazy lavish St. Bart's 40th birthday party or something where she's giving away expensive stuff or something like that. I don't care. Like, I know that Alina Haba sucks, okay? And she's a bad person trying to do bad things. But she's a lawyer. She's got money or something. Like, if she wants to have, like, a nice birthday party, she could presumably do that. And, look, I understand the concern that some are putting forward is that, theoretically, this is money that was donated to the Trump legal defense that's going to her thing. But I don't think that there's good evidence of that, so I don't understand it. Just let her have her birthday party or whatever. Anywho... Now, here's the second thing I want your opinion on, and then we'll move to our final story. In the last week, okay, get ready to type. In the last week, have you used ChatGPT or Midjourney or Bard or Gemini or whatever sort of like AI platform? Have you used it? And if you've used it, have you used it for like a personal thing, a work thing, a school thing in the last week? That's what I'm curious. No, so far, I've only seen nones and not evers. That is interesting. Okay, I see ChatGPT and Copilot. Thank you. The reason I ask is because Business Insider has... I see a few yeses and some work. I see none. You used it for a none. So the reason I ask is because Business Insider is talking about the fact that, like, the popular coverage of these sorts of things seems to have gone down, sort of implying that people are less likely to use them. But when you actually break it down, particularly amongst younger people, the rates have actually climbed since last year. So 18 to 29-year-olds, in March of last year, 12% had used something like ChatGPT for work. Now it's at 31%. To learn something new has gone from 16 to 31. For entertainment, it's gone from 21 to 31. So it does still seem to be going up. And it's not just for Gen Z. Like, even 50 plus is marginally up in all of those categories to smaller amounts. And the overall amount is far lower. But people do seem to be using it still. I will say, I'm still concerned about it getting into things that it shouldn't be in. I was watching a video. I'm a big Helldivers player now. I was watching a video. And it was like talking about all of the primary weapons. And it was so obvious that the script had been done in ChatGPT. Probably not generated by ChatGPT. It's a bit too specified. But like clearly had revised it. Because it has a way of talking. And it just was so unnecessary. And I don't know why Why did it have to get involved in that? But it has this way, like, predilection towards, like, flowery language that I just don't get. But and you could double your income by streaming Helldivers. I don't think anyone is going to learn anything from watching me play Helldivers. Would you like to watch, like, me accidentally blow Jordan up with a grenade? Or blow myself up when it bounces off the face plate of an alien and then lands at my feet? Anyway, let's get to our main story. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and let's talk about this. So, Marjorie Greene is saying that she will not take the blame if Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker. Well, if you haven't been following things in the House, why would Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat, become the Speaker of the House when the Republicans have the majority? Well, bear in mind, they don't have as much of a majority as they used to. It's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Over the past month, 2 Republicans have announced that they are prematurely leaving. They're not going to be finishing their term of office. That's bad news. But they still do have the majority. The thing is that Marjorie Greene is once again pushing to throw, Galfar, we'll talk about Marvel Rivals at some point, is once again pushing to throw the Republican Speaker of the House out. So they already did that with Kevin McCarthy, and now they're doing it again, or they're trying to. She's brought up the possibility. If they do that, do you realize you're doing the Hakeem Jeffries hand dance while you're doing Hakeem Jeffries? I actually don't know of his hand dance. I'm not familiar with that mannerism. So if she sets up this vote when the Republicans have such a narrow majority, it is unlikely, but not impossible, that the Democrats could take over, that they could get their speaker in. And that would be one of the most amazing lowercase c coups in politics that I've seen in a long time. Let me just pump the brakes a little bit and be a bit of a Buzz Killington in saying that I don't think it's likely to happen at all. But if it does, she's not responsible, okay? So she was on the Real America's Voice show, and she said, it's just simple math. The more Republicans like Mike Gallagher that resign and leave early, guess what? That means we have less Republicans in the House. So every time they leave early, that brings our numbers down and brings us dangerously close to being in the minority. It's not Marjorie Taylor Greene that is saying the inconvenient truth and forcing everyone to wake up and realize Republican voters are done with us doing this kind of crap that we did last week. But that's you're saying it's not me that is doing. But like that's not what we're talking about. You're making it about that. You're the one that's trying to throw Mike Johnson out with this effective like vote of no confidence. Like, I love the weaselly, cowardly defense of trying to make it about something else when we're talking about a specific thing. You could criticize the Republican Party for, for instance, Mike Gallagher leaving. You could criticize him. You could criticize the Republican Party for funding the government because you're a wackadoodle and you don't think that the government should be funded. You can do all of that, but that's not what you're being criticized for. What you're being criticized for right now is trying to eject the Speaker of the House and open it up once again to a vote. That it will at the very least be contentious and possibly drawn out and maybe could result in the Democrats taking over. If that happens, she will not be solely responsible for it, but she will definitely be responsible for it. You're the one that started this thing. And this is what they always want. It's so cowardly. They love to talk about millennials wanting participation trophies or something. She wanted the cred for being like, I'm standing up against Mike Johnson. Oh no, it might not go right. Well, I don't want the discredit. But they're two sides of the same coin. It's a process you have begun. If you want the cred, then you have to get the uncred that might come if Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker of the House. That's just the way reality works. God, these people are utter cowards. They try to hide that by talking constantly about guns, but they're fundamentally, to the marrow of their bones, cowards. They're terrified even of the consequences of their own actions. Anyway, that's unfortunately all the time we have for the pre-port. Thank you so much for being here. We've got a full show coming up in just 5 minutes with Maz Jobrani. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about Obamacare. We're going to be talking about tariffs. We're also going to be talking about Donald Trump being a big old cheat at golf. So lots to discuss. Oh, Jon Stewart being attacked. Is he being hypocritical? We will evaluate that, and I hope to see you there in just a few minutes.